Right, so I'm just setting up the broadcast here. Now, I apologize for the issue earlier. I'm just trying to make sure that this is actually working properly now for everyone. It's most likely that you'll be listening to this on a recorded version, unfortunately, just because of the issues that we've been having, the technical issues. It's most likely. Very sorry, we had 3 technical issues happen all at once, which is less than ideal when you're trying to run a webinar. So I apologize for that. So hopefully most of you can listen to this on a recording. And again, very sorry for the issues with that link. I was pretty excited about getting that done, but we're going to have to do this from a recorded version. Now, I'll just quickly go through the intro that I did last time because it seemed like we had some sound quality issues. So just a bit about me. So my name is Sam Mackay. I run my own business intelligence consultancy business. So we focus primarily on Power BI, only Power BI, because we feel like it's really the only tool that you need to do some really advanced analysis and to do it in a far superior way than what you've historically done mostly in Excel. So we do a range of different things, including consulting, implementation, also a lot of training, and also developing some products on Power BI as well, which is quite exciting. Power BI is not only an analytical tool, it's also a development platform. So a bit where I've come from. So historically, my background is actually in finance. So I've spent basically my entire career in finance and have worked in a bank. I've worked in one of the largest investment firms in the US, and also worked in the finance area of New Zealand's largest company, which is where we're based. I was historically a big Excel user, so I could do most things in Excel, including VBA. Could do some advanced analysis in there. But it's always a bit of a struggle. It was always a bit of a grind. It's from making sure the data was all correct, and having to do a lot of manual manipulations, a lot of manual updates, to creating visualizations and all the clicks and inefficiencies of getting that into PowerPoint, taking it to a meeting. I dealt with this for a long time, and I always felt that was basically the biggest downside of Excel. Even though it was a really powerful tool, and is still easily the most widely used analytical tool in the world, it really fell down in that workflow essentially of getting your insights in a scalable way, and then also distributing your insights. So as soon as I saw Power BI and how you could actually utilize it to automate all that and really easily do 5 to 10, over 10 times more than what you did in Excel, I was massively hooked. And was able to work away at the firm that I was at and utilize Power BI in quite an advanced environment, and was able to achieve some great things compared to what we had done historically, and also what had just been done historically for years and years and years. Some of the Excel work that we were doing had been done repeatedly for 3 to 4 years. Was very mundane, etc. And to be able to automate all of that in Power BI was really eye-opening and pretty phenomenal, really. The change, the speed with which we could get the insights that we required to make our decisions was really great. So that's just a bit of background about me. Now I thought I'll quickly just go through what we're going to cover in the webinar. So we're going to go for about half an hour and 40 minutes. And in the live webinar, I was hoping to actually run some Q&A, but unfortunately can't do that just due to sort of these technical difficulties. But really, just for the next half an hour to 40 minutes, I'm going to run through a number of techniques of how you can, in a very quick way, start doing some advanced stuff in Power BI, how you can create or recreate at least what you're doing in Excel easily 10 times faster. You'll basically be able to learn. You'll basically be able to automate a lot of what you do. I'm relatively confident in that. But half an hour really isn't that much time, so I'm going to have to brush over some topics and just to get through the volume of content I want to go through. But in saying that, we'll learn a lot within half an hour to 40 minutes. A number of the techniques that I use on a day-to-day basis, building models and running my analysis. So I'm just going to share my screen during that time, and we'll just go end to end. So we're gonna start with start with our raw data. I'm not going to do too much in the query editor today, but we're definitely going to do some data modeling and then run a lot of DAX calculations and builds out some visualizations. And within that, we're gonna cover quite a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen now, and let me just get this set up. Great. Okay, so now we're in Power BI Desktop. So we're going to spend most of our time in Power BI Desktop today, because this is obviously where you do a lot of your analytical work. This is where you're going to do the modeling. This is where you're going to create your DAX calculations. So let's just do a quick review of the data first in scenarios. So we're going to be working with data today, which is just sales data. So standard sales data from an organization which sells along the East Coast of America. So if I can just jump into the sales table here, you'll see that in the table here, we've got every order at its, if I can just get to the sales table. Yep. So we've got every order for every sale, and then that's obviously associated to a product, where it's sold, the salesperson, which customer it went to, and then the purchase date and the quantity. So we've got all the information that we need here, and we've got other information, say in our product table like so. We've got some pricing information, we've got the product name, it's just randomized here as you can see, and then we've got some location information. So we've got the name of the city, the county, the state, for example, and then some latitude and longitude information as well. And we've got our date table here, which has got all the dimensions that we likely need. So we've got date, we've got year, we've got month name, so on and so forth, and we've got customer here as well. So it looks like we might have some people online, which would be great. If you are online, thanks for joining, and maybe just write in the chat. Hopefully the sound is actually okay this time. So just let me know if not. It's a little bit less than what we had before, which is unfortunate, but these things happen. Great. Okay, so if you want to run the chat, go for it. Now I'll just we'll just keep trucking on here. So now that we've got the data in and we kind of understand what the data is, now let's start building our visualization. So the first port of call is you always have got to go to the relationship section first, because as you can see, we've got to build our model here. We've got to build our model of our data, and at the moment there's no relationships between our tables. So we've got to make sure that we build this in an intuitive way as possible, so that we can almost visualize what's going on in this model when we're running our calculations. So what I like to do, and hopefully you're aware that there's two types of tables. So there's lookup tables and there's fact tables. Now, lookup tables are the ones that are going to really filter your fact table, and your fact table is always like your transaction table, or the table with every single iteration of your data. But then your lookup tables are things like your customer name, your location, your dates, your products, etc. And now we want to join relationships between these lookup tables down to a fact table. And I like to always put my lookup tables up the top like this. I always like to structure things like this. It just helps so much in terms of just understanding what you're doing, and then also for the continuity of your models as well. Because if you have stuff all over the place like this, and you've got all these lines going across in the model, it can become quite confusing, especially if someone else is going to be developing your model at a later point. So we need to start building our relationships here. So I'm going to join up my index column in my customer table, and I'm going to join it to the appropriate index column in the sales table. So that's just customer ID here. And so I'm going to join that up, and I'm also going to join up my location ID. So I drag that down to there. And also I've got my date here up, so I'm going to drag my date down into the purchase date. And remember, you've got to do this. This is where your first port of call should be every single time you bring in new data to your model. And then I've got my product date here, my product ID, sorry. And so now I've got all my relationships joining to my fact table. All of these tables I'm now going to, and all of the columns within these tables, I'm now going to use as filtering dimensions or filtering columns for this table down here. and then all of the DAX functions, all the calculations that we will put on top of this this table eventually. Now, one thing to note is that all of these are created single direction relationships, which is great. So sometimes you'll see that these double arrows will come up here, and that's a multi-direction relationship. You, in most cases, and I believe about 95% of cases, do not want that relationship. You want a single direction relationship where it flows from this one side, which is signified by this 1 here, and it flows down through the relationship, down through this arrow to this asterisk here, which is the many side. And so you always want it to be looking somewhat like this, from your lookup table down through the 1 and the arrow to the many to the fact. And that's how you want to try and always aim to build your relationships if you can. Okay, so enough about data modeling. Let's now jump into actually building reports. So we started with a blank canvas. Now, the first thing I like to do here is I like to start creating my measures, because I like to think, well, what are some of the calculations I know I'm going to want to do right now? Well, things like sales and profits and costs, etc. Those are the sort of things that I can calculate pretty quickly with DAX, and it's simple formula as well. It's not hard at all. Really simple formula. So let's just jump into it. Now let's actually create our first measure, and you create your measures up with where this calculator is up the top here in the ribbon. And what it will do is we'll open up a formula bar, and it's going to ask me to enter something into the formula bar, the name of the measure, and then I'm going to, it's quite slow today unfortunately, but so I'm going to call this total sales. And I have to use what's called an iterating function here. The reason being is because if you remember the sales data table, it actually only had information on the quantity. It didn't actually have the price. So I have to use a little trick here, and I have to use an iterating function. I have to say, well, iterate through the sales table, and in that sales table, for every single row, times the quantity by the related price of that product, because the product price is actually in the related lookup table, which is up the top in our data model. So if I now drag that on, I've got my first measure, our first calculation. We can start working with this and creating more DAX measures one after the other. So I just want to bring up this first one and just make sure it's all working. Okay, great. So we can easily change the visualization here. So we can change it to a card, for instance, and then we can see that it's about $35 million. Now, the one big thing to note here, the biggest concept that you need to know in Power BI, especially with DAX, is this concept called context. Now, the context of the calculation is the real power of DAX. To learn it, I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions. Actually, I'll describe what context is. Context is the environment in which a calculation happens. So the environment in this case, the environment of this result here, my question to you is, what is the context of this result? So what is the environment of this result? The simple answer, excuse me, the simple answer is that there is no context, because it's really just calculating the entire column, or it's running through this iteration, and it's doing this logic for every single row. For every single row, it's going to calculate the sales quantity times the actual price of that quantity. Now, but this, we can change the context of this calculation and get very different results really quickly. And that's how you can create a lot of these insights way faster than you can in Excel, because in Excel, you've got to write some if formulas, you've got to write some product formulas, and they can get sometimes quite complex with all the different logic that you might want to include in there. But what we can do is we can drag a different dimension like product name and drag this exact same function and retrieve results like so. And that's pretty powerful. And that's how you can get a lot of insights incredibly quickly. incredibly quickly because we use exactly the same function, a simple function like so, and we've got all these different dimensions on the right hand side here that we can use. So we can use things like product name, we can use all our different locations like county, city name, state code, customer, we've got customer name, and in your own data sets you might find like you've got heaps more of these different dimensions that you can use. And it always starts with one simple core measure like this. I like to call them core measures because they're really the simplest measures you can create. Sometimes it might just be a simple sum, but in this case it's a sum x. So let's just go, let's just have a look at customer name just to reiterate the point. So the point here is that if we look at this result individually, what is the context of that result? The context of that result is this customer, right? And so the environment for every single result is changing, and that's why we get different results like so. Okay, so let's now create a measure table. This is always a great example of what I like to do just to make my models as intuitive as possible, to make them really easy for me and anyone else to understand. Now, to create a measure table, you go into data like so. And what this is going to allow me to do is to create a virtual table with nothing in it. And then within that table, I'm going to put all my measures. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to put one in here. Then I'm going to go key measures like so. And what that is going to do is we're going to see on the right hand side here, a table is going to come up. A table will eventually come up. It's a little bit slow today. So when it does come up, all I'm going to do is from now on, I'm just going to create all my measures within that table. And that's going to, it's just going to make it's far more easier for me to go and grab those measures whenever I want them and drag them into the canvas so that I can create visuals quite quickly. So eventually this will happen, this will get us, this will load. And what we're going to find though is that there's actually no relationships. So it's trying to detect a relationship, but it shouldn't find one because there is no relationship. This table has no relationship to anything in the model. So to double check that, let's just go to the back here. Yes, and you'll see that this can just sit on the side because it doesn't have any direct physical relationship with any of these tables in here. So let's now move this total sales measure. Let's move it to our key measures table. So the way you do that is you click on the measure and then you just select a different home table. So this home table is now going to be key measures. And then you've got to just hide this column like so and flick the field in and out like that. And then now we've got our measure table and we can work from here. Okay, so now let's just double check our other calculations that we might want to do here. Now, the next calculation I want to do is I want to figure out what are my total costs. And if we look to the product table, you'll see here that we have a cost column. And so I'm going to then now work out, just like I did with our total sales, the total cost of everything. So it's actually quite easy. So I can just copy and paste like so, create a new measure, paste it in because it's the same pattern like that we're going to use. I'm going to call it total costs. But instead of current price here, I'm going to find cost like so, push enter. And if we set this up down here, you'll see, I'll just format it like that. You'll see that we now have our total costs. And the same thing applies for total costs. We're exponentially growing out all the different looks that we can create here because of context, the power of context. Now that we've got total costs and total sales, I guess we can work out total profits, right? So I'm just going to go total profits here. A new measure, total profits. And all we're going to do is we're going to branch out these measures. I'm going to go total sales minus total costs. And now we've got another measure. We've got total profits. Make sure that this is formatted the way we want. And I'm also going to do, I can also just quickly think of another measure that I can create. And it's another branch of our initial measures, percent profit margins. So let's create another measure and we'll call it percent profit margin. And in this case, I'm going to use divide, and I'm going to go total profits divided by total sales. And then I've got to make sure this is a percent, obviously, and make that 1%, 1 decimal. Drag that in. And now you can see how quickly we're adding we're adding calculations into our models, right? Very quickly we're able to create these functions with simple formula. We haven't had to do anything complex that you likely would in Excel. It's really simple stuff. And then all we're doing is that we're aligning it to a different context, to a different dimension in our data model. And so now we can quite quickly get, we can get some good reporting done. We can find some really good insights just from this. So let's actually go and create that. So I'm going to create, let me just do a quick check. So I'm going to start creating this report. I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to create a heading for this page. And what we're going to call it, because this is a retail sales company, I'm going to call this Retail Sales Performance. Just going to make sure that this is this stands out, because obviously you want everyone to know what you're showing here, what you're showcasing. But good titles, and not only on the pages but also in your visuals is really important. Makes it so much easier to know what's actually happening, or what the consumer is actually looking at. Now let's start creating some visuals here. So we've got everything set up now that we need to start creating some pretty compelling visuals. So first of all, I'm going to use this map visual, and we're going to start mapping out some of the geographical insights that we might need. So I'm going to grab the state, they're going to grab the county in here. But what we've actually got latitude and longitude here. So I'm going to use these latitude and longitude dimensions, and then I'm going to grab my total sales and drag that into the visual like so. And now we can see total sales across all our different regions that we have retail sites like so. And I could also use my total profits down in the tooltip like so. Now, I also want to see, well, how are my sales going per customer? So I'm going to drag my total sales into the canvas, and then I'm going to find my customer name field, and I'm going to turn that into a bar chart like so. And now I also want to look at my total sales by product. So again, all I'm going to do, copy and paste, is your friend here, and I'm going to grab my product dimension. I'm going to find product name like so and sub it in for customer name. And now we're cooking. Now we've got a few, we've got a lot of insight already, a lot of great insight already. But we're not going to stop there. We've got far more that we can actually work out now. We've got some key metrics that we can put up here like so. And then say, for instance, we might actually want to see total sales over time. So I've got our date dimension here. So I'm going to drag my date dimension in there, get rid of the hierarchy, and then drag total sales into my values field there. And I'll just drag it down like so. And also what we might want to do, well, we might not only want to look at total sales, we might want to look at profits. So I'll just chuck profits in there. The drag and drop is in terms of time saved for getting your insights together is pretty remarkable, really. It's in terms of, compared to how long that used to take when we used to do that in Excel is pretty scary, actually, into the speed with which you can do that now. Okay, so now it's starting to look like something pretty insightful, pretty interesting. But we haven't finished. We've still got a bit of work to do. So we've got a few spaces to fill. So what I also wanted to do was be able to look at this by state code. So I'm just going to drag in my state code there, and I'm going to look at my total sales for the state code. And I think this is a good one for a a donut chart like so. And I'll just sort those. And then we've got some key metrics down the side here. So we've got total sales, total profits. We might want to go total costs, for example. And we might want to look at our profit margins as well. So there's some other fields that we could fill in here too over time. I like to make these a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to go to the formatting section and just make these look a bit more, make the dimensions of them look a bit better in the environment, in the report page. The last thing I want to do here is I actually want to actually be able to quickly filter by year and by quarter, because this is actually still showing everything through time. This is showing, but we might want to drill into a specific quarter and see how we're going. So I'm going to drag my year up there, and I actually only want 2 years as well. So I only actually want 2015 and 2016 too. So I'm going to filter those out for the entire page. And then I'm going to make this horizontal. Actually, we've got to turn it to a slicer first. That's why that wasn't working. And I'm going to turn this to horizontal, and then I'll get rid of the header. And then I'm going to change the color of this into a lighter color. Okay, so there's one other thing that we need to do here, because I've just realized that we don't actually have a quarter. So I want Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and I want to put that in the slicer, but we don't actually have that. So I'm going to show you now how you can actually create it. So based on this date table, we've got everything that we need. We just don't have this specific dimension. But you see here, we've got Q3, and we've got all our Qs that we need. So all I need to do is actually create a new calculated column and use some really simple logic and call it quarters. And then I'm going to go left, find the quarter and year, and just go to 2 like so. And then we've got now our quarters, which is pretty cool. And then we can use this just by copying and pasting here. So I'm just going to go in there. Cool. So now we can, just with a couple of other changes, we can start now really diving into our data like so, and really drilling into the information that we need. And this is why it's so much quicker than using Excel, right? Because you've now set this up, and now this is basically automated. The back end's automated, the querying of the data, the insights, etc. And it was not. Hopefully, you realize it wasn't hugely difficult. I mean, it was a little bit of setup, and you've got to know what's going on in the data model. But other than that, not a huge amount of difficulty here. We've created some simple DAX functions. We've then dragged them into dimensions in our data model, and we've got a number of different looks and views of our data. Now, a couple of things you might want to do here is you might want to edit the interactions. So if you select something, you actually get a full filter on your data sets. So what makes a bit more sense to do it that way than high slicer like this, where it really doesn't give you much insight at all. So you've got to just go around and make sure that these are all completed like so. And say if we wanted to drill into a specific region like that, again, we might want to just change the filters here. And you can quickly just jump into any of your different regions. I love the spatial analysis that you're able to achieve. That's really powerful. Now you can do a few other things like formatting, etc. So if you want to do some simple formatting, like adding data labels, I always like to add data labels like so. And then I also sometimes actually like to get rid of the x-axis if I add the data labels. And so we will go make sure that there's no truncating of the number there. And we've got a pretty good looking dashboard here. Some of the improvements that I'm not going to show on this webinar, but especially the colors. So the colors obviously don't look that compelling at the moment. So you'd need to do a bit of changing there. Just changing it to these sort of colors is probably not sufficient in a lot of cases. So you're going to have corporate branding and custom themes that you're going to want to utilize. So I would highly recommend trying to find those, and then you have to actually work out what the hex code is for each of those colors. If you look on the Enterprise DNA website and the resources there, you'll actually find this color theme tool. And then very soon, I have no doubt that Microsoft will actually bring out themes, and that's going to solve all our issues anyway. So that's, it's going to be a moot point in no time at all. But the idea behind this was just to showcase how quickly you could find all these insights. So say, for instance, we wanted to drill into the performance of our product in this time frame. All I've got to do is now click on that, and we've got some pretty good insight. We're looking at the profits we've made per day, the sales we've made per day, the margins, how we've gone at a state level for that particular product. And the reverse also holds true. We can drill into a specific region and then see all the analysis for our customers and that product's there. So pretty powerful stuff, but we shouldn't stop there as well. We should create some more analysis. But let's just create another page of analysis before we check out, and just to show how quickly you can actually get this stuff going. So what I'm going to do here is, because I've actually got all these set up, I'm just going to do a copy and paste here because it's got all the formats that I want. And we're gonna look into our product set. So I'm going to say, well, I'm going to call it product sales analysis. And I'm going to make sure we've got the year filter right though. So we'll get the year filter in here because we only want to look at 2015 and 2016. Now let's grab our product. Let's grab our product names. Let's create a filter for our product names like so, because we want to be able to drill into any one of or group of these products and be able to see a number of different metrics based on that. Now, what I like to do is I like some time intelligence. I like to look at information over time. And so time intelligence is really straightforward. And if you understand a little bit about DAX and a little bit about the calculate statement, time intelligence is really easy and powerful. So I'll just rush through how to create these things because we've gone over a lot already and I don't want to overload you so quickly. But to create these time intelligence functions, you do them like this. So we're going to go, first of all, calculate the sales last year. I'm going to use calculate, and then I'm going to put in my total sales measure. It's called same period last year. And now, if we now look at this on a date level, you'll see that the total sales, and then if we put total sales last year against it, we're now reviewing total sales this year versus total sales last year, which is pretty cool. But now sometimes I actually like to look at this cumulatively. So we've got to utilize our cumulative total pattern here, and because I want to analyze cumulatively how have total sales gone this year versus how did cumulatively they go last year. So we need to utilize these two measures and then branch them into the cumulative total pattern. And I'll show you what that cumulative total pattern looks like. So cumulative sales this year. And so I've got calculate and then total sales. And then we're going to use filter, all selected, and put in the dates table. And then you've got to go dates is greater than or less than max date. Now, if I drag this into the canvas now, you'll see that we've got cumulative totals. As easy as that. And this is just a pattern, remember, we can reuse this. As easy as this. I'm just going to copy and paste this. And then to get the cumulative sales last year, then all I've got to do is sub in the sales last year measure like that. I've just used exactly the same pattern. And then if I drag cumulative sales last year, now we're looking at cumulative sales through time versus our cumulative sales year and last year. And we got there as easy as that. So I can get rid of these intermediary columns, and then I can change this into a visual. And now we've got some compelling analysis cumulatively. Now, we might also want to compare our information. We might want to compare our, just get rid of this hierarchy here. We might want to compare our total profits this year to total profits last year. So what I might want to do is utilize this pattern to, instead of going to sales last year, I want to go profits last year. and I'll put in total profits there instead of total sales. So again, I've got another measure of total profits last year. And so then I can just drag those in, and now we have a visual of sales this year versus last year, or profits this year versus last year. Might want to also look at this from a product perspective. So if we have some products selected, we might want to then just drill into those specific products and see, well, how have sales gone or profits this year versus last year gone? So I'm going to just recreate this table, but use the product dimension, and we'll just create it like so. And so if I start selecting some of these, you'll see how this is going to start changing up. It's going to look quite quite compelling. So this selection might be from a particular product category, for example, and it's as easy as that to get to these insights. And so just to finish off this visualization, what I might want to do is look at, well, how for these selections, let's create a table of information based on which customers are actually buying this stuff. So, and all the metrics around that. So let's go product name, and let's grab some locations. So let's actually grab the county as well, and go state code 2, and then we've got total sales and total profits, and let's grab our profit margins. So this is pretty compelling, right? It's so easy, drag and drop. It's just amazing. And why don't we put that down there? And I'll just sort this all out so it looks in order. We can just make sure that this fits along like so. Okay, so now we've got a pretty compelling visual here, and then also we might want to actually copy some of these metrics over. So I'm just going to do a quick copy and paste. Copy and paste is seriously your best friend with Power BI. It speeds up your development process exponentially. So I've got some product sales, but we've got some other metrics we can use here. So we might want to look at our profits last year, and we may also want to look at our sales last year, something like that. So I'll just reconfigure these so that they look in order. And then now think about the different ways we can slice and dice our data here. We can really drill into our information. So say we wanted to just look at a particular quarter, the last quarter of last year, and say, for instance, we wanted to drill into this particular product 12. Well, how did we actually go cumulatively versus product 12 versus last year? Well, you can see that we started better last year, but then lagged a bit, but then really took off, and slightly more sales eventually at the end there. And if we wanted to see, well, what were those individual sales, we can identify each individual sale to each individual customer like so. Then we can see a real quick summary of the information here. And it's as easy as getting to, if we wanted to incorporate more products in here, or a group of different products, just select on that slicer there, and the information dynamically changes for you just like that. So just as a quick review before we end today's recording. And it's unfortunate we couldn't do Q&A today, because that would have been great to be able to just go through some of the questions that you might have had, but it hasn't worked out. So we might have to do that next time. But in review, if you think about the different insights that we've been able to achieve, and the speed with which we've been able to do it, and then to think that this is basically all automated. Hopefully you can identify how much more you can achieve than what you're potentially doing in Excel. And to be honest, we've really only scratched the surface here. There is so many different things that we could have done, but we just don't have enough time. We would need 5 days to go over everything that I'd want to go over with you guys. But you can even very quickly get to a position where you can run this type of analysis really quickly, and you can make it look really, really compelling. You might want to make a few updates to some of the visuals here. You might want to change the location of some of the things, but overall, it's all there. The flexibility is there to develop compelling analysis and find compelling insights. much easier, far easier than historically has been done. So hopefully you found this beneficial. It was great to be able to run this, even though we had those technical difficulties. But these things do happen. If you do have any thoughts or feedbacks, don't hesitate to get in touch. Love to hear from everyone. Love to get your feedback. Always like interacting with people who are interested in Power BI. So just happy to just shoot me off a note, and I'll come back to you in due course. Now, one of the things that I'll include when we send out this recording is a link to a next webinar. So I'm planning on running another webinar, and I'm going to make absolutely sure that we don't actually have the issues we had this time. I'm going to make sure that everything works, but it's also another opportunity to go into some more advanced stuff, actually. So we're going to go through some more DAX calculation patterns, which you can utilize on top of your data models to find even more insight, to run scenario analysis or to do more time comparison type work. So we'll go over a few more of those examples, probably on the same data set as well. So that would be really great if you can come to that. But obviously we'll be recording that one as well. So I'm just going to sign off here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And until next time, I'll speak to you then.